You've heard of quiet quitting, but now companies are doing something really strange, and your job might be next. In 2020, workers experienced a sort of golden age. Higher pay bumps, more vacation days, increased 401k matches. But today, the job market is showing signs of fatigue, and companies are seeing a unique opportunity for a workforce revolution. One that's already begun. It's the dawn of a new era in the job market. I've always thought if your company doesn't need you anymore, your boss would simply schedule a random meeting, label it as urgent, and say, yeah, it's been great, but see ya. Firing or laying someone off offered a quick way for employers to reduce costs and increase profits during less than great economic times. But that's not what companies are doing anymore. Today, employers are firing people without actually firing people. It's confusing, but just stick with me here. Throughout history, kingdoms, organizations, and businesses embraced a certain culture called quiet cutting, or reassignments for certain types of people. High-level officials, military commanders, influential individuals, and rejected the idea of outright firing them. If a king fell out of favor with one of his military generals, it could have been dangerous for the king to just fire him and strip him of his rank. The military general could get angry, retaliate, and start a rebellion with his most loyal soldiers. To avoid an internal war, the king could simply reassign his general to a new, non-military, important-sounding position that doesn't come with any real powers, hoping that he'll get fed up with the new job and voluntarily quit, which is exactly what the king wanted from the beginning. Over time, chances of a disaster or rebellion arising from laying someone off became less of a reality. As a result, organizations and companies opted to start firing people more liberally instead of simply reassigning or quietly cutting them, because it was faster and way easier to do. Today, quiet cutting or reassignments are back. Thanks to TikTok, Twitter, or X, and the internet, any company that fires their staff could lead to a PR nightmare. Not the same as a rebellion, but still, no CEO wants that. This is Vishal Garg, Better CEO, who fired 900 employees on a Zoom call in 2021 and became infamous globally. Years later, Vishal is still facing backlash. This is Brandon Willock, CEO of Hypersocial. He posted a selfie of himself shedding tears as he announced layoffs at his company. Subsequently, he was dragged through the dirt, figuratively. But it's not just a PR scandal that companies are worried about. Firing workers is also really expensive. In 2022, when Meta laid off a bunch of employees, it cost them an additional $4.2 billion. There's severance, early termination of office space, and changes to projects that they no longer had employees for. While firing workers to reduce cost might be undoubtedly faster, sort of like ripping a band-aid off, quiet cutting or reassigning workers by giving them less prestigious jobs with less pay, fewer benefits, and more work might be better off for the company. The company's hope is that these workers will hate their new jobs so much that they'll voluntarily quit. No PR nightmare, no severance pay, no lawsuits. Companies including Adidas, Adobe, IBM, and Salesforce have been restructuring their workforces just like this. Mentions of reassignment or similar terms during company earning calls have also more than tripled. It's the new buzzword on the street, right next to artificial intelligence. And according to AlphaSense, reassignments across US companies have tripled. Although getting quietly cut or reassigned sounds terrible, it might not always be a bad idea. And something else that isn't a bad thing is Moomoo, that's offering up to 15 free stocks. If you open and deposit $1,000, you get 15 free stocks valued up to $2,000 each. And despite the funny name, they are a registered broker-dealer with the SEC and is a member of SIPC, meaning you're covered up to $500,000. Get your free stocks, link below. In the morning, you get a random meeting invite with your boss. Immediately, you think, that's it, I'm getting fired. You grudgingly put on a shirt, tap Mr. Magic Lamp for good luck, open Zoom, and wait. But instead of hearing the words, you're fired, you hear, you've been reassigned to a new position and team. Oh, and your old job is gone. Immediately you feel relief, you thank Mr. Magic Lamp because you still have a job. But once that Zoom call ends, you start to spiral. Wait, what exactly does that mean? Maybe you were gunning for a promotion or a raise, but you got reassigned instead. Naturally, you'll start to dissect this word, reassigned, and wonder, will I eventually get fired? Maybe they're trying to get me to quit? Or, how can I work my way out of this job purgatory and back into something I actually want to do? The truth is, being assigned a new role isn't always bad. Most of the time, it could mean one of three things. 1, your employer thinks you're a great employee, but your current role doesn't fit with the company's new vision. They'll reassign you because they don't want you to leave and go to a competitor. 2, your employer thinks you're an okay employee and already invested a lot of time in training on you. Although you might not be great at your current position, they do see some potential and think you'll do better in a new role, a new team, or just with different responsibilities. Or 3, your employer thinks you suck. Maybe they can't outright fire you for legal reasons, you have a very large severance package, or it might just lead to bad PR. So they'll assign you to something else and hope that you'll hate it enough to voluntarily quit. Although getting reassigned could be good news, since it makes sense for companies to retain good employees, it's going to be tough for you to believe that you got reassigned for anything other than the third reason. Whether you already got reassigned, want to reduce the chances of getting reassigned, or just want to be in a financial position to not give an F what your employer does to you, here are 4 things you need to do today before it's too late. The labor market isn't as strong as it used to be. You need something that'll make you unfireable. The easiest way? Just find a deep dark secret about your boss and blackmail them. Years ago when I worked at a startup, I knew this one engineer who literally could not care less when there were talks of layoffs. When people were freaking out around him about potentially losing their jobs, he literally could not have been less bothered. For the longest time, I couldn't understand why. After a few conversations, I discovered that the company quite literally needed him. He was the only engineer who fully understood how all the source code and the tech stack worked together at the foundational level. Sure, there were other engineers who were working on the code, but they were mostly compartmentalized. It turns out this guy was one of the few, if not the only person who knew the ins and outs of the entire platform. And he knew if he got fired, it would be a nightmare for the company. So first, you need to personalize your role and make yourself essential to how your team functions. I don't mean work longer hours or suck up to your boss. Instead, become the go-to expert of something for your entire department. Do you work in customer service? Work with an engineer to build a service tool that addresses common customer pain points that only you know how to fully operate. Do you work in legal? Create detailed contract templates for your company that only you know how to use. Are you an accountant? Be the go-to expert of your employer's finances. You need to own something that becomes integral to the function of the team that forces everyone else to be dependent on you to use it. And if you want more actionable insights and practical life advice like this, sign up for Rethinkable, my free weekly newsletter to live a wealthier and healthier life. Link below. Next, when I worked in corporate America, like many of you, I wanted to prove myself to my boss and coworkers. I was caught in this idea of constantly seeking validation from them and gunning for a promotion. In retrospect, the work culture was pretty toxic. We'd all brag about how many hours we worked or how we were working so hard that we skipped lunch. We'd kill ourselves just to reach a deadline. But for what? The truth is, your company doesn't care about you. You are just a cog in a machine. If you disappear tomorrow, the company would just replace you with another cog, as if you never existed. So instead of proving myself to others, I learned to start proofing myself. I stopped seeking validation and instead focused on self-validation. I started upskilling and learning new things to the point that I became both indispensable to my company and self-sustainable. They needed me more than I needed them. It's a wild mix of power and emotions because at this stage, I no longer felt confined by my job because I knew, without a doubt, I could easily find a better one or use those skills to start my own business. Next is understanding the ability to do things like proofing yourself and starting another income stream are now easier than ever. Over the last decade, the internet has exploded, and with it, entire industries like education became more accessible. Before, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to college or trade school. But now, you can learn what you want, whenever you want. With a limitless amount of courses, educational videos, and books online, you can level up in nearly anything, whether you make cool graphics or do data entry. So one of the first things I invested in was a financial freedom course. I wanted the power to take control of my time and the freedom to choose how I spent it. Fast forward a few years, and I'm here. And it all started with knowing my financial freedom number. You can calculate your number by yourself or download my financial freedom calculator to do it for you for free. Link below. When you put your money into the right education, tools, and resources to improve your skills, it can pay back in dividends. And I'm not saying that college has no purpose, it definitely does, but it is refreshing to know that it's not an absolute necessity to do what you want to do. Today, 46% of middle skill and 31% of high skill job listings don't even require a degree. Next is knowing your true value. And when I talk about value, I'm not talking about self-esteem or confidence. I'm talking about understanding your intrinsic worth and recognizing the value you bring to the table. If you have a job at a company that's profitable and your salary is $60,000, you need to know that what you provide to the company is worth more than $60,000. It's simple economics. Every business model is designed to make a profit. Salaries are generally one of, if not the highest expenses of the business. So naturally, a business is going to try its best to pay you less than what you bring to the table. Your true worth, skills, and talents are actually greater than you inherently believe them to be. In psychology, they call this belief imposter syndrome. It's basically where you constantly doubt your abilities. You worry you're not good enough, your work sucks, or you've just been a very lucky person and that luck is gonna run out soon. But the reality is, you are good enough. And it's only after you recognize your true worth will you be in a position to not care what your employer does to you, because you'll always know that you can and do deserve better. And that leads me to something you've got to start accepting. And it's that even if you really try to not let your job have power over you, sometimes you can't help it. And that might be because you're not doing these things immediately after you get your paycheck. Click here to learn the best paycheck routine to build wealth that you need to start following today.